And we are back with the 8th installment of the Think Fitness Life podcast with your hosts, myself, Matt Gluckman, and Eric Menchie. And today we have a special show for you guys. We're going to be interviewing a former coworker and fellow trainer, Michael Urso. And I'll dive into a little bit more about him in a little bit, but let's get to our normal routine. We got fitness in the news. I know Menchie's got something good he wants to say. And I got a little tidbit I want to talk about. I went to FitCon this last weekend, and there's a lot of cool companies using technology in a lot of innovative ways to help people. And there was this one I came across. It's called Binge Block. It's called buybingeblock.com, and it assists with sugar addiction. So this spray binds to your sweet taste receptors and basically tricks your brain so that your brain no longer is sending signals to require more sweetness, right? That's that craving that you continue to have. And sweet foods aren't as triggering to your dopamine release when you have this in your system when you eat them. So you get less reward on one end and you get less desire from your brain. So, sugar addiction is a true issue. And as easy as it can be to say, just cut sugar out for 30 days, it's not always as easy to get done. I'm sure Menchie can agree with that one.
I can get on board with that.
Yeah, and I just feel like a lot of my clients, as much as we make like one goal to work on through the week, that there's always something. Oh, well, it was Easter and I had a little bit, or well, we have these cinnamon bears in the house, so I just picked out like a couple, and yeah, it just seems like sugar addiction is a true issue. So buybingeblock.com, check them out, go read how it works, and I'm gonna give it a try here. I ordered up a bottle, and I'll be reporting back on it in a couple of episodes. So Menchie, what do you got for us?
So I was browsing the net today, and I came across an article about canola oil and that it actually can lead to Alzheimer's. Pretty big study was done on mice, but it showed lower levels of dementia-fighting protein in the brain. If that level of protein declined, it would show plaque buildup in the brain, therefore leading to dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, I also did other research on the web and kind of read into it. And there was a lot of conflicting arguments out there on, is it good? Is it bad? As of right now, I haven't kind of made a conclusion myself yet. And Mike, maybe you have a kind of insight on this or opinion, but I think the main idea of the article is kind of switch over to a healthier fat option. Canola oil is not the best option to use. I mean, it could have some detrimental effects. Now, obviously, human and mice are completely two different species, but studies are done on mice. So, I think consensus might come out later down the road on that one. But I just figured an interesting piece of news and kind of get people's mind turning about that stuff and what kind of oils they use.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, actually, because like you said, it's more of like the plaque buildup versus it being an issue with like the smoke point. Because, as we talked about a couple episodes ago, canola oil actually has a really high smoke point. So, it doesn't get that issue where it breaks down the bonds of the oil and makes it more of a trans fat. So, it's interesting, but it looks like the winner still is extra virgin olive oil. And then if you're cooking above 350 degrees, you probably want refined coconut oil. So let's move on. And we're going to go ahead and introduce Mike Urso. He's a former trainer that actually both Eric and I had the pleasure to work with for a brief period of time at Franklin Street. But this guy did a mentorship with Mike Boyle at Strength Conditioning, Mike Boyle Gym in Boston. Or actually, where is it in Massachusetts? It's not in Boston. It's in Needham.
Woburn. It's about 20 minutes north of Boston.
Woburn. And then he went on to just be his own personal trainer, climb the ladder, and eventually became a Tier X manager. It's the highest tier you can get to as a trainer for Equinox. He did that for 6-7 years, and then he went on to be one of the leading contributors in a company called Golden Home Fitness. And they made this amazing ebook that has all the information you need to know if you're working out at home, where to begin, how to progress, different things you need to incorporate. And I'm going to let him talk about it a little bit more. But here we go. We got Mike Urso. Welcome. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, the ebook, it's exciting to talk about because I came from that corporate gym environment for the last like 8+ years, and that was kind of the only thing I know. And then you kind of realize when you look at some of the stats of how many people don't use their gym membership, and when you think about the rates of what they cost on a monthly rate, and that people aren't showing up and they're just allowing their credit card to be charged every month, and it's just amazing to me, right? And so you know what we did was we wrote this ebook for essentially the people who are kind of lost. They're out there kind of just wondering, how do I start? They're going home and they're binge watching Game of Thrones, or you know Ozark, which I'm watching right now, which if you haven't seen that, pretty awesome. But they don't really know where to go. They don't know how to start, and that's kind of we put all the information in there for them in regards to eliminating distractions. How often should you be doing this? How can you progress? What if you don't have any equipment? What do you use? Can I just use my body? How do I get a quality workout? How could I possibly burn fat doing that and actually build more muscle or get stronger? So we put a lot of those kind of practical type of tips and tools in there to help people kind of understand you don't need a gym membership and you don't need fancy equipment to get super healthy and super fit. You don't need resources. In other words, you need to be resourceful. You need to find a way to make do with what you have, essentially. And so we tried to do is help direct people with some of these tools and tactics and ways that they'll be able to just get started right away with what they already have.
Yeah, I really, really like how the first thing you guys talk about is just sort of setting yourself up for success. I mean, I feel like because I go to my sister's place in Pennsylvania and they have a little home gym there and we're working out sometimes, and always, always, always there's distractions. Our phones are on us, or the kids are yelling, or my dog's running around, and I gotta say it's a good awakening to see that you just really have to do the prep work ahead of time before you just start working out. It goes a long way towards getting in a good workout.
100%.
So
yeah,
I do got to ask you though, how do you get rid of the kids' distraction? You just lock them up in the dog crate?
The kids. Well, I mean, I would say, why not get your kids involved, right? Why don't you try there? There's a lot. You just talked about all the noise coming in, right? We're always distracted with our cell phones, with emails, with all of this information that's continuously bombarding us left and right. And then our kids end up having to compete with that too, right? I have two kids. I've got a 2.5 and 3.5-year-old, two little girls, and I find myself sometimes having them or putting them in a position where they have to compete with my cell phone, and it's totally unfair, right? And as a parent, I'm like, kind of brings me back grounded, essentially. But really, I would say getting them involved is probably even more important. I mean, it's a great way we know what exercise does to a kid's brain, and the kids are, for one, are always trying to figure out the world, and they're super interested in things. Why not get them involved in being active? Kids can't stop moving anyway. So that's one thing you could do. The other thing to do would be to coordinate with your spouse or your childcare provider in some way, and really kind of essentially coordinate that time, put it aside, and make sure that you have somebody who can either watch them for a little while, or like you said, you don't want to pen them off into a room and just kind of let them have a free for all, and then you come back an hour later and the place is a disaster and drawings on the wall and stuff. So but I would say
free art.
Yeah, free art. Getting them involved, and also just making sure that you're planning, and planning is extremely important.
Yeah, no, I like that idea of getting them involved, because even if they're not they're still doing everything right. They're still moving. They're still getting activity. They're still jumping around. They're having a good time, and they get to be with their parents. So
Absolutely. Do you
I
guys
like
know,
that.
you're familiar with the Boston Celtics
Yep.
and, Brian Scalabrine?
Yeah.
So he used to play for the Celtics. I think he's an announcer now. He works out at the Lifetime Fitness, and he brings in his kid all the time. And he has him like standing on the sled, and he pushes the sled while his son's on the sled, and then he has him slamming balls and doing box jumps. And Brian's doing his workout, and his son's doing like a scaled version of what he's doing. But it's so cool. It's so cool to see their kind of interaction, and really, they're building a better relationship like that. So for me, yeah, that's the ultimate way to go, is to get them involved in some way. They don't have to do the workout you're doing, but they can do a version of it.
Right. And for you, Mike, I've seen kind of your daughters mess around with kettlebells on the social media a bit.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I had my daughter they wanted to first wear little princess dresses, and then I'm doing just kettlebell stuff in the kitchen, maybe some goblet squats because I'm always trying to move and do stuff. And my daughter's like, I want to try to pick it up, so she goes over in her little princess dress and deadlifts for the first time a 16 kg kettlebell. And she does like a rep or two. I mean, mind you, she's 34 pounds. She's
That's
not
body
even
weight right there. Yeah, exactly.
It's 1 pound more than body weight. Needless to say, I was a pretty
you gotta
proud
be at
dad as
that
a
point.
fitness
So
professional.
will they kind of jump in on, certain movements like jumps and stuff while you're working out, or kind of like hang around, float around, or?
Yeah, so I'll do a lot of most of what I do at home is a lot of like body weight stuff, and I would say like yoga flows and things like that, or some more flow type of stretching, maybe like animal flow based stuff. And they'll be like crawling on top of me. I'll have her like lie on my back, and I'll do some push ups with some extra weight, or we do some like acro yoga where she'll like be up on my feet, and we'll practice some balancing stuff, and they absolutely love it. They're totally involved in it, and they love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, we definitely covered one solution to a major problem that a lot of people have, and sort of why they don't have gym memberships or why they don't go to a gym or work out, is time. I think that's definitely a major issue across the board, across the population, whether you have kids or you don't, is just sort of finding the time to make it work. And, there's probably a lot of people who are at home, they have 3 or 4 hours before they got to get ready for bed, but their kids are home and they can't figure out when they're going to actually work out. So I think that's a lot of good solutions in there. But I want to talk on another topic that I feel like prevents people from working out or getting into the gym, and just anxiety and feeling pressure, I guess, from being in a gym and intimidated from being in the gym. So touch on that a little bit for me.
Yeah. There is certainly an intimidation factor when it comes to the gym environment, especially if it's somebody who's been out of the gym for a long time and maybe is pretty deconditioned or put on some extra weight since they've last been, physically active. And
might be a little bit more self-conscious,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely, yeah, that is definitely something that that you worry about. I mean, I think what's the best way to go about that? We kind of I look at it in a way of like it's developing a strong mindset. And so, you know, I guess we can call it discomfort conditioning, meaning get yourself comfortable being,
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Comfortable with discomfort. And there's multiple ways you can do that. If you want, we can talk about ways to do that, because those kind of things do cascade into areas of your life, like, situations like where you may feel self-conscious going into an environment that you don't really feel comfortable in. And a gym is definitely one. It's just like anything, right? If you haven't been doing anything, or going anywhere, or doing any specific task for a long time, you're not going to be good at it, meaning you're not going to feel comfortable there because you haven't been doing it. So it may mean just showing up and, putting on your hat over your face and going in the corner and doing some work until you feel like you can feel good about yourself. But at the end of the day, I think you really have to condition yourself to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and stretch yourself. You don't really grow or grow that essential self-esteem if you cannot put yourself into those situations. If you continue to avoid them, what you end up doing is you condition yourself to avoid them more frequently. So it's a lot about conditioning.
And to be better at that avoiding process. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, I'm someone who definitely struggled with social anxiety growing up, and being in the gym and in the health industry, like it upsets me when I talk to people and they are upset at the atmosphere of the gym and they feel like it's very intimidating and it's very discouraging when they see a lot of people who are really in shape and they're not so in shape, and that upsets me because it shouldn't be like that. The gym should be like a more open environment, more of a sense of community. People are there to better themselves, and other people should be supportive of that. And it is a shame that is a thought in people, that they get so much anxiety around even going to the gym. But on the other end too, it's a shame that um, people, I don't know, are less apt to support somebody they see who is working hard. Like I don't know. I feel like more people are gonna make fun of the person who's out of shape doing something silly than supportive, and that really upsets me. And I always try to look for, I don't know, just look for people who might be in their head or discouraged, they got their head down. I just try to brighten up their day a little bit or get them to open up. And because like you said, having that stronger mindset is really what it comes down to, because it's all that anxiety, all that negative self-talk just starts in your head. And the quicker that you can pull yourself out of that and stay more positive, and like you said, like anything else, that you get better at it. And all of a sudden, you realize that halfway through your workout, you're able to enjoy the workout. And then all of a sudden you realize the first 5 seconds when you walk in the gym, your heart rate comes up to your heart, you feel your heart in your throat. And then all of a sudden you're able to kind of relax out because you're like, you know what? I've been here before. I'm comfortable. This is it. I'm going to be okay.
Right. And look, I think that it's the culture that's been created around this too. We're not individually to blame, but the culture, these are the same people feeling self-conscious who are looking at their Instagram and Facebook feed and seeing all these pictures of beautiful people or people lifting all these weights or, in bikinis and, in the gym flexing and all these things. And nobody posts pictures of their, their bad lifts or their, their face in the morning when they wake up before makeup. People aren't doing that. You're seeing everybody's putting out this, kind of false sense of reality, what it really is. And unfortunately, that's all we see, and it's magnified because it's coming at us from all these different channels. And that becomes more of what we think life is actually like. But then when you get out there and you realize even when you get into a situation like walking into a gym that's a little intimidating, once you're there and once you leave, it's never as bad as what we make it out to be in our head, right?
Yep.
Now, in your book, Mike, does it kind of help people with that anxiety of kind of introducing them to a program to kind of get involved and start moving or kind of get comfortable with, their start of their fitness journey?
Well, we don't talk a lot about that. And I think that would be one of the areas that would be critical when it comes to, hiring a coach or having some sort of fitness confidant, somebody you can rely on to help you establish what your goals are and what your focus is. So, I mean, yeah, one of the most important things in my opinion is, setting very clear goals. So it's going to be very hard to get yourself off the couch or get yourself to go to the gym or get yourself to do a home workout if you're not clear with what it is that you want out of this. So you really have to take a deep look into, what you want, what your goal is, and have a lot of clarity. There's, really having a defined outcome. I think it's really important. And so that comes down to asking yourself good questions. What kind of experiences do you want to have? Why do you want this? There are a lot of tools and tactics that we've used as coaches, via training from Precision Nutrition that has allowed us to, open up that Pandora's box essentially and try to get to the root of not just why somebody wants to lose weight or have more energy, but what's the reason behind it? What is it going to do for them? How is it going to change their life. And, once they can connect with that and have some sort of value system, then you can really start putting the wheels into motion on how we could drive forward towards that.
Goal oriented is like the biggest thing for a lot of people. And if people are out there listening, kind of, before you say, I'm going to go to the gym, do this, kind of really sit down, like Mike said, and find your goal and kind of what's going to drive that, not just what you want, but why do you want it, and dig deep into that.
Yeah, there was a cool study. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. No,
well, there's a cool study I read just recently, and it talked about there were 3 different groups that were part of this trial. The first group was essentially a group that they gave, just a command to, and I don't know how long the study was. I can look back at it and we can reference it here maybe in the notes. But essentially, the first group was given just, we want you to work out, at least 1 day a week, and it was for the set period of time. And then the second group, they basically said, we want you to work out 1 day a week, and then we want you to read this motivational quote every day. And then the third group, they said, we want you to do the same thing. We want you to work out once a week. We want you to read this motivational quote every day. And then third thing we want you to do, so they gave them another task, was to actually write down when and where they were going to work out. So they actually made them physically write down where they were going to work out and when they were going to work out, what day, what time. So a lot more clarity onto how they were going to make that happen. And so, no surprise, but the first group who just had to work out 1 day a week was like 20% successful. I think the second group was about 40% successful working out once a week. And the third group was like a staggering like 91% successful at working out at least once a week, just because they wrote it down.
And I think another aspect to that success group, which I was just about to say, was having the steps, right? Having the sort of the minor goals. Like, you can have a big goal, but you need to have plans in place or checkpoints in place that lead you to that goal. Because I think I read this somewhere, and it just said, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And it's so true. Like, I talked to a lot of people in the gym, what are you working out for? Well, I'm trying to do this, this, and this. Oh, well, how is your workout contributing to that? And, thinking, oh, I need to work out is fine and dandy. But if you can't also then think in your head what time you're going to work out and, whatever, when during the day, whenever it fits your schedule, whatever, then you don't have that next step, that piece that's really going to get you to the workout goal. That makes sense?
Yeah. And as a coach, the last question that I ask somebody as we're sitting down in a goal setting session is, how are you going to do it? So you may get to a point where this person says, I want to lose 5 pounds by the end of the month. Great. What are you going to do? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work out 3 days a week. Great. So we know 3 days a week, and some people would settle for that, right? But there's too much ambiguity with that. There's not a whole lot of not ambiguity, but there's a lot of like
room for error.
Room for error, right? Yeah, 3 days a week.
Like, what does that mean? 10 minutes each day, or
right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah. There's it's too vague. So I always say, great, you're going to work out 3 days a week. That's what you're going to do. How are you going to do that? And so what I'm looking for there is to nail down some of those specifics. With a nutrition goal, I'm going to drink a glass of water every morning. Great. That's nice. But how are you going to do that? How are you going to make sure you're going to do that? And so setting triggers are one of the best ways for you to go about that, meaning something that's going to alert you to actually do the behavior or the habit that's going to then lead to the goal, right? Because we don't have any bearing on the actual, losing 5 pounds.
Right.
The only control we have is the process, or all those little behaviors and habits that lead to the 5 pound weight loss.
I just got to mention this because you were like one person whose brain I picked like first day I saw you in Equinox. Because I just saw, I'm not going to downplay anything. There are 30 trainers there. You see who the elites are and who dives into depth with their clients. And just like watching you on the floor like for a day, I was like, I got to talk to that dude. And I remember picking your brain about sort of motivational interviewing, assessments, and empowering people. And it's astonishing when you sit down with somebody who wanted to sit down with you, right? They wanted to meet with a trainer for an assessment, and you ask them what their goal is, then you ask them why, and there is such a long pause. It's like they had a goal in mind, but they didn't know why it was their goal. They didn't know how they were going to get it. And by just, we as trainers don't always have the answers, but we can ask the right questions, right? And we can start to lead us to the right answers. So just by stimulating that thought, get those juices flowing, gets things more solidified, gets them more likely to visualize achieving their goals. And it just went such a long way. And I remember one thing you told me to do too was talk to them about, what is in the next 4 weeks, what do you want to accomplish? And that is on the smallest scale a goal, right? Like, people who are like, I want to lose 100 pounds. I want to be able to deadlift 500 pounds. I want to be able to do a marathon. That's a long-term goal. But right there, then and there, when you have that person in front of you who is clearly has some sort of self-motivation, they want to start going, they just don't know how, and you can really put it in their court, like, what do you want to see in the next 4 weeks? And it's so great to hear. The majority of the answers I hear is, I want to be consistently coming to the gym 3 or 4 times a week for a workout. And that's just such a great answer in my opinion, because then you see that they're really trying to hook themselves into the process. But I do have to thank you. For that, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Well, good, man. You never know how you affect a conversation sometimes. So that's cool.
Now, Mike, I know we kind of mentioned goals and stuff. Now, getting that nailed down first, with people that kind of don't go to the gym or are afraid to, and they have these goals set out, or they listen to this and they find it, how does your book help them kind of, or anyone that's looking to improve their workouts or improve fat burn or build muscle, how does that kind of help them get on the right path for that success-driven journey that they're going to start?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, the book is certainly incomplete in ways, but I think what it does do is, if you notice, most of the book isn't even really talking about exercise in itself. More of it is about the preparation and, some of the background of, why you don't need all these things. And a lot of people rely on resources when at the end of the day, some of the most successful people in their respected areas of the world are just extremely resourceful. They figure out a way to make it happen. And so setting goals is obviously paramount. But what the book does do is it allows you to essentially have more of a, I would say a smart approach to how you go about it. Meaning somebody who's deconditioned and just starting to work out, you don't want them obviously jumping right into it and doing, a CrossFit WOD or some sort of high intensity exercise. Their body is not quite adapted to that type of stimulus. And, number two, they may get discouraged because they're going to be, sore and in pain for the next 2-3 days and not going to be able to work out or get off the toilet. So you want to have a slow, steady progression. And so what we did was we basically used just body weight in our method, in our first approach to, this is where you would start, because a lot of people want to throw some weights around and think that that's the answer. But at the end of the day, most of us have not mastered our body weight and the challenges that in itself can provide. So we wanted to show that these are some of the ways that you can adapt just using your body weight to be able to challenge yourself further with what you have. Meaning, some of the basic progressions are going from a bilateral position to a unilateral position, or maybe changing your base of support by going from, a nice stable bilateral stance into more of a split stance or a single leg stance, or even changing some of the vector angles, right? So, you have different implements at home where you can, put your hands on your counter and do a push-up if you can't do one on the ground while still maintaining good core position. And then when you can progress lower, maybe you go to 2 chairs, and then maybe you can go to the ground, and then maybe you're putting your feet up onto your chair and you're progressing. So we wanted to show that before you even need any type of weight, you can use everything that you already have within your house. If you have paint cans, you have essentially things you can do farmer's carries with, or rows. There are so many different implements that you can use in your home to be able to get a solid workout in without having to ever touch a weight. So we wanted to essentially show people that there is a way to get the work done to achieve the thing that you want to achieve. And sometimes you just need it laid out in an organized way to
Yeah, I agree.
understand that. So we tried to do that.
That overlook that, well, don't even think about body weight training. I think we've all read books where it says, do these programs to gain muscle or lose weight, but they all have, resistance training, which ideally we all want to get to. But I think a lot of the population needs to start with just moving body weight. And I know, Matt, we kind of talked about this last time about the squat, just getting moving around in a squat position to help people kind of feel what's going on. And I think that's great that this book outlines, that you can gain all of these beneficial fitness effects at home just doing body weight. And I think that's very underlooked by a lot of people. And sometimes even people don't even realize the different intensities, duration, and frequencies that they can change with body weight workouts, that they feel like they're just all going through the motions or stale with them. But definitely check out the variations in this book of all exercises you can do body weight.
Yeah, and what we also did too is we actually took all of the exercises that we programmed and built into a progression regression table. So basically, here's your starting point. Here's how you can make this exercise easier. Here's how you can make this exercise harder. So people may not want to start with that standard exercise. They may feel like they try that and, oh, this is already easy. So we want to progress them, and we wanted to give them the tools to be able to do that. And then the same thing with that standard exercise. If it's already too challenging, here's how we regress it. But what we also did was we took all of those exercises that we built into the program and we put them into created YouTube videos of them. So if people are, a little bit confused on, how do I do a Bulgarian split squat? Well, just go to our YouTube page here and go check it out, and we're going to show you exactly how to do it. So we've also gone to those lengths as well to make sure that we're putting those tools into people's hands.
And don't misjudge that scrawny, that Gumby looking dude in the pictures, because he's a strong dude. That is a picture of Mike in most of the pictures, and I'm just giving him a hard time. But it looks can be deceiving, but he can front squat more than I can back squat. Also, too, like one of the major things about sort of perfecting your own body weight is just getting a foundation for proper movement. I mean, I'm sure you probably learned a lot about that with Boyles, working at Mike Boyles, and I know you've been a really strong proprietor of perfecting movement and different ways to get back to sort of your primal movement patterns from when we were young. Is it safe to say that if I was to do a home workout, all body weight exercise, what would be sort of your checkpoint to say, okay, you know what, I think I'm ready to add weights? Would it be like, if I can complete 3 sets of 20, am I good? Or what are your sort of different parameters there for when it's time to start adding more resistance?
Yeah, well, I would first encourage everybody there to make sure that they're listening to their body. So become very in tune with all the senses and sensations that your body's giving you. We're always getting feedback, and a lot of us, as we talked about earlier, in this crazy world with all this noise, rarely do we actually listen to the signals and the feedback that our body's giving us all the time. So stop and pay attention to what you're experiencing, in that sense. How hard, how heavy is your heart rate pounding? How sore are you after your workout? Do you even get any soreness at all? Do you get any tightness at all? Pay attention to those different things. And so, when you're no longer feeling challenged, or and I think at the end of the day, it's going to come back to, what are those goals? Are we setting micro goals, on a monthly basis, which is, this is what I'm looking to achieve this month. If I'm easily hitting that goal, well, then I didn't set the bar high enough, and I probably need to challenge myself in a different way. If that's within the workout, or if that's within the intensity of the workout, I would look in that direction.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Just kind of a case by case scenario. Like if you're squatting and something feels tight or uncomfortable, then look into that a little further. But if you're doing push-ups and you can hit 15, 20 and everything feels easy, then yeah, and form feels good, then yeah, you're probably ready to progress yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if we're looking for benchmarks and things like that, if you can do like 100 body weight squats and be able to kind of back up your stairs or back down your stairs and be fine, I think it's time to move on to some weight. But also, like, same thing with push-ups. I think you get to a certain point, if you can do, let's say, like, 30 or 40 push-ups pretty easily, you've probably got a really good base of strength, I would say, and more specifically, strength endurance. Then yeah, maybe time to start adding some load in some way, or changing the vectors, or moving to a handstand push-up so more of your body weight is over you.
Yeah.
There are so many different methods you can go, but I think really, I know my thoughts are a little bit more abstract, but really paying attention to that feedback is extremely important, and then asking for the advice or the tutelage of, under the tutelage of a coach or some sort of mentor or somebody who's an expert. Reach out for help. I think a lot of times we look at, if we're a kid and your dad or mom wants you to learn piano, what do? They hire you a teacher.
Yeah.
If you sign up for sports, you don't just play soccer on your own. You have a coach. If we want to get better at something, the fastest way is not to waste a whole lot of time figuring out for ourselves. It's to hire or have somebody mentor or coach you that is an expert in that and can help kind of expedite that process for you and get you there faster. That is one of the fastest ways to get to a result, is to hire somebody who knows how to make it happen and who has done it before.
Preaching that on here is reaching out, or just asking questions in general to higher ups, or people with more knowledge. It's always good to refer out to people, especially if you want to gain better knowledge.
And I was gonna say,
Absolutely.
it is abstract, some of your answers, but it's good, because instead of giving somebody the fish, you're telling them to think about finding a fishing rod, and you're empowering them to think about themselves and be more mindful in their body. And I think it goes a long way, just because you don't have a definitive answer right away. I think it goes a long way to sort of asking or using a question to answer a question that posed towards you. But that kind of gets me into sort of what I want to bring up last was this is great information, but unfortunately, what I would feel like is that it doesn't get in front of the right people. There are, you talk about in your book, there are 67% of people who have gym memberships never even go. Besides that fact, right, when a Google search, I think it came up like in 2015, 2016, there were 55 million people who had gym memberships. So there is a population of about 150 million people, 150 million adults, excuse me, because we're going to eliminate children out of this comparison. So you're talking about less than about 33% of people who have gym memberships. And of those 55 million people, only 67% never go, right? So don't lose me on the numbers here, but back to the major population of people who either aren't working out or are just working out at home. How do you get in front of those people? How do you attract those people? Where do you find those people? Because those are the people that are so caught up in their routine or so overwhelmed just with their own social anxiety or their own mental pressures that they can't even fathom hiring a personal trainer.
$1 million question.
It is. And when you have the real answer, we will not broadcast that to the other people because we'll keep that in-house.
Well, I'll just say that I'll say one quote that I believe with everything I have,
love
which
quotes.
is, and I don't know where this came from. Maybe Matt or Eric, the origin, but when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Oh, snap.
I think that everybody has to realize what it means for them, right? When is it time? We live in a very reactive society. The way conventional medicine has been developed to treat, ailments and chronic diseases very reactively. We don't have a proactive mindset. It hasn't been part of the culture for a long time. It's, wait until it happens and then respond or react to it, as opposed to, let me get out in front of this. Most people end up not being able to act on their fitness or their health until something has actually, they've gone to the doctor and the doctor said, hey, you need to lose 20 pounds or you're not going to live for another, 10 years.
Right.
Things like that. Like, we live in this society that really is so much more reactive about how we approach those things. So how do we do that? education is huge. But even then, there's enough information out there. There is more information from a Google search than there has ever been in the history of the world at today, at this moment in time, and it's only going to get more inundated with data. Why then do we still have an obesity epidemic? Why then do we still have people who are being having brain diseases and all these things that can be reversed or even prevented with proper nutrition and proper exercise? I mean, it's $1 million question. I wish I had an answer. I really feel though that people have to be ready. You have to be ready for when that time is right for you. And I can't tell anybody individually when that is for them. I will just say that I am in this business to be able to help those people that are ready. And if they just want to have a conversation, I'm willing to kind of help them open up that box and see, how we can kind of drive them forward.
Yeah, and I think that's why we all get in this business, is trying to, when those people are ready, they're going to come, and that's what we want. We want those people to be ready almost all the time. And we want more people to dive into this and care more about their health and wellness. And I think that's all we can ask for, is just, people being more ready all the time.
Yeah, there's a commercial on TV right now I saw recently is with Common, the rapper, and he talks about how we're living in an age where we have more information at our fingertips than generations and generations before us. And I think it says something about like, generations before us like dreamed of having that type of access to information. And at the end, it's just like, but all that matters is what are you going to do with it? And it's so true. And it's sad, but I see it mostly in the newest generation of just being too comfortable, and it creates this almost cyclical behavior of just searching and yearning for that most comfortable environment, and never really pushing themselves to challenge themselves or make themselves uncomfortable. And it's a real shame. I feel like if as society has progressed in from 100 years ago over every 10 years, it's just like we're getting more and more progressed, so that we're just trying to be doing everything in the comfort of our own home, sitting around in our boxers, so it just I don't know. I completely agree about how sort of socially we're kind of moving towards a weaker route, but we need to realize that and make a change and challenge ourselves and get out there and work hard.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to, well, especially the wellness side of it. People, they know all this information, they read it, and I don't want to say they deny it, but they kind of brush past it until it really affects them or affects a family member, and then it's like eye-opening for someone. It's like, holy smokes, I have to get in better shape or this is going to happen. And you kind of hate to see when people get to that point, because it's almost urgent, and it's that fear. And I just wish that people kind of would realize that at a sooner point.
Before. Yeah. I know. It's a shame, because the one thing that kills me is like when I see all these commercials on TV for kids cereals and stuff, and it's like, man, that is like probably 60% just sugar. And I feel like one misstep as a society that we make is the stuff that we give our children and the way we reward our children, and using sweets and ice cream and candy as a reward system. It just sets kids up for sugar addiction when they get older. Like I saw a video on Facebook the other day, and this little girl's like 5 years old, and she's, I can only think of pancakes right now, and pancakes and syrup. I want pancakes and syrup. And everyone in the video is commenting like, oh, that's so funny, so cute. And I'm just like, that little person is literally sugar addicted to the point where she can't get her mind off of it cognitively. So,
Too, is like, not a lot of people think about this, but our primal instincts as a species, we are wired for comfort, survival, and protection, or guarding ourselves. Our job is to sustain life for as long as possible, and so that means doing whatever protects us as much as possible. So, I mean, I'm reading a great book called Sapiens right now, and it talks a lot about the evolution of mankind and the history. And, we're wired that way. We're wired to,
To
run
seek
away from
comfort.
saber-toothed tigers.
Yeah.
Right. And seek comfort. And so unfortunately, that has found its way into a world where there are so many different options and so many different pleasures and so many, different things that were generated or modified or produced to be able to make our lives easier. Technology, for one, it can be an absolute gift. It can help us, connect. It can help us have this, chat across the country right now. But at the same time, it can distract us. And, while we're changing our, stereo in the car, end up, getting into an accident and, something really bad happening. So there's good and there's bad about it. Right. And so we just really have to kind of step back and realize, hey, we're kind of wired this way. And in order for us to achieve, in order for us to get out of that comfort zone, in order for us to strive towards something that we need to accomplish, we kind of have to override that nature and push ourselves, in a way to achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a big balancing act. Well, we still have a little bit of time. I kind of wanted to talk to you guys because I know that both you and Menchie are precision nutrition certified. So I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about, as a trainer, what is your thoughts about the value that it brought as a tool to your tool belt and how you find it's most effective with your clients? And why don't you go first, Eric?
The biggest value I brought away with it, kind of what we were speaking about earlier, is goals. A lot of people think that, oh, you have a nutrition certification, you're just going to tell me what to eat, how to eat, the whole 9 yards and what's good, what's bad. But really, it's more of an approach of how can you change your behavior and approach to nutrition to get to your goal or get to you want to be? How can you be healthier? And whether that is, taken week by week and adding a goal in is key for a lot of people. And I think that can be applied to exercise as well, or almost anything in life. Having a certain goal and then create it into a behavior goal, following through with that goal at any means, getting it done, brings back to what Mike said earlier about bringing that mindset. And then that makes that goal seem easy and that task seem easier. Then you move on and pick another task. So I think it helps immensely just kind of structure the way that the mind works and get someone on board with why they should be doing something and how this is going to progress them, and almost challenge them is like, see if they can actually do it, because getting out of their comfort zone is the hardest thing for them. But they know at the end of the day that it's right.
But would you have used that approach before you had the precision nutrition certification, or that was something that you learned from the precision nutrition certification to apply with people?
I think it was very well drilled in the precision nutrition that it was almost like, hey, you got to use this. And it was crazy for me not to use it, because I always had conversations about nutrition and stuff, but it wasn't ever kind of like in depth and goal based and what's the best approach. And I think that really kind of solidified that gap for me as a trainer of putting this together and now putting it with your program, how this whole thing's going to work. And the more focus on that really helps, rather than like, you need more vitamin C or, whatever the nutrient density is. And because people don't really care about that stuff, they want to know if they do this, they'll lose 5 pounds of weight in 3 weeks of time. And like Mike said, what are you going to do to get there to lose that 5 pounds?
Yeah. So you found it as a really good certification, not only to help, coaching people in nutrition, but also
nutritional
facilitate
mindset.
behavior change.
So for me, I think if you look at the way the book was structured, the first half of the book is essentially the theory and the science. And the second half of the book is kind of that coaching application. And so it was a perfect marriage of how to deliver the information to allow us to be better coaches of, habit and behavior change, and helping people achieve their goals through those different modalities. I love understanding the why and the what of, behavior modification. I love learning about macronutrients and, and all the different, biochemistry and how your body interacts with all these things. It's all great information, but I think you also have to have this good marriage of, great, now how do I take this information and relay it to a client in a way that's going to actually resonate with them, that's not going to be over their head, because I may understand micro and macronutrients and biochemistry, but they don't give a crap about any of that stuff. They just want to know that I can help them lose 10 pounds. So for me, it was the coaching application part of that certification was worth its weight in gold, because what it allowed me to do was take all that information and not throw it out the window. You keep it in your pocket, but it comes down to, how do I find a way to intrinsically motivate this person, or how can I find this person to intrinsically motivate themselves? Because we know that, science and studies show that people who make their own choices to do things are much more likely to stick to them than somebody who gives them, the answers or gives them the choices. That if they come up with them themselves, they're much more likely to accomplish it. So the coaching method has taken me to that point to allow me to coach my clients that way. And so, precision nutrition level 1 was great, but level 2 was taking it a whole step further. I don't know if you want me to go down that hole, but that was a pretty intense program as well.
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear about it. I didn't see value because I'm, it's Mr. Skeptical over here. I didn't fall into doing PN1, and partly because I did see there was a PN2. I was like, oh man, it's just a buy-in thing. There's probably a PN3, PN4, and then at the end they're going to measure my thetan levels. No, I'm kidding.
No. Well, I mean, I would say this. I can echo what Eric said about, it being, it does not pertain to just nutrition coaching. It pertains to all aspects of coaching. Does not matter if it's fitness, if it's sleep or regeneration, whatever you're trying to coach the client to improve on or do better. This level 2 has just an amazing methods. Now, yes, there is dealing with, special populations, and they go all the way from dealing with people with eating disorders to how you help, transgender people with supplementation. They go in so many, different aspects and areas of scenarios that you might encounter as a coach. But what I loved about it is, and their method of teaching was, it's a year-long program, 365 days. For an entire year, you have a mentor. This person is basically overseeing, you have essentially a lesson for the day. You may have either a case study that you have to, write, or you may have a multiple choice test that kind of covers some of the topics that you went over the last week or two. And so what they make you do is, over the course of those, 50 or 52 weeks, almost a year, they will actually make you implement the habits first. And then, so they do that for 2 weeks, and then they have you coach your client of yours for another 2 weeks. And then there's a lot of reflection and a lot of discussion in the Facebook group, and there's a whole lot of collaboration with other coaches as well. But what it does is it gets you to experience what it may be like to implement those habits and understand personally how hard it is, because some of those things were really hard for me to do. Some of the habits that I would be coaching my clients to do. And so it gave you this perspective now from a client's point of view to say, wow, I really now have a lot more empathy than I ever had in the past on how hard creating changes with and moving closer towards these goals that they want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And so it really changes the way you approach coaching and the empathy that you bring into those scenarios. And so what it did was, at the end of the day, it made me a much better listener. It made me a much better communicator. And I have gotten, so much better results with my clients since I've gone through that process, because of the conversations that I can have with people. And because I now know how hard it is to go through some of these, changes.
So I think it's safe to say that if you're somebody who, you have a lot of behaviors you need to change and adjust, and it's not just about like losing a couple pounds or getting back into a gym routine, but you have a lot of behaviors that are poorly contributing to your health, that you would almost want to seek out a trainer who has a PN1 or PN2 certification. Is that fair to say?
I would definitely say, yeah, if you're
Okay.
struggling with some of those things, more of a mental roadblock as opposed to, just, you just need a program. Yeah, you definitely would want to seek out somebody
It's
who's.
probably the most reputable company that I know of that works off of a behavior change model. So let me throw you an example real quick. Say that we'll say I'm good at working out. I have a solid breakfast. I have a solid lunch, but then right around 2-3 o'clock, I just have this sweet tooth kick in, and I try eating a couple, you know, almonds and snack on a little things. I have a glass of water because in case I need something like that. But then I get home and I still want something sweet. What would be like your small behavior change goal to sort of get out of that habit?
Well, I would ask you first. I'd have a question.
Of course you
What
would.
is what is doing all that preventing you from achieving that you want to achieve?
A downward spiral. So if I start eating a little sugar around 3 or 4 o'clock, I always crave some type of dessert after dinner, and then I just don't feel like I'm giving my best performance the next day.
So this is about, would you say that it's about when you say performance the next day, meaning for your workout or for your energy levels?
Energy levels, feeling maybe lethargic, or I feel like maybe I have more food sitting in my stomach. I might feel a little bit more bloated. Just general, yeah, just general feeling, just feeling poor.
And so you'd like to feel better, is what you're saying. You'd like to. How would you like to feel instead?
Well, I'd like to go through my day and not have that sweet tooth craving.
Okay.
Because I can only get willpower to work for me for so long until I just finally give in, because I'm sitting there watching a movie and I just want to, I'll just go have like, a couple dark chocolate chips, or I'll just have a couple cinnamon bears.
And have you been doing that for a long time though?
We'll say yes.
Okay, so you just then understand that this is not going to be something that you can fix right away, but what we need to do is implement some strategies that allow you to be able to, move in the right direction essentially, and start to build up some confidence in being able to, you know, make better choices. Would you
So
agree?
maybe the first step for this one of these strategies is you tell the person, let's try to not have your first sweet until like 5 p.m. Is that a fair sort of a judgment of what you mean by implementing strategies? Like, I'm looking for like an example. I'm just trying to give you like a case study example,
Yeah,
and for our
with something
listeners,
like that.
kind of see how your thought is in kind of tackling these issues.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm gonna approach it in a way of I'm gonna keep nailing down questions until I get them to almost come to light of it themselves. I don't want to give them the answer. I want them to think that they came up with the idea through my questions, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Because if you
absolutely.
do that, it makes them far more successful. Like I said, it becomes an intrinsic motivator then, because now I just when I first asked you the question, that first question, you paused for a long period of time before you answered. That's what I want to hear. If I can stop somebody dead in their tracks with my question and make them really think about it, I'm teaching them something about themselves that they didn't know prior to me coming into the equation.
Well,
That makes sense.
I think we were playing a little game of mental chess, because I was looking for
Yeah.
whatever answer would give me, or whatever answer that to respond to your question that would get you to give me the answer that I think would best relate to the most amount of people listening to our podcast. So it's probably a
I see.
little chess game there, back and forth there, but
Could have been.
uh, but
If we go
yeah,
back to that. So
I love how you're just basically you're empowering the person and having them sort of you're right again. You don't have the answer, but you have the questions, and you're stimulating that thought. You're stimulating that search for an answer, and ultimately, if they come up with a strategy, it's going to be something that they obviously feel like they can accomplish. It might be a challenge, but it's accomplishable, and I feel like I'd fall into a trap more so of maybe I'd give somebody too much of a goal that was a little too overzealous, and then if they don't hit that goal, that's even more demoralizing. So I do
Yeah.
like how
Well,
you word that.
let's stick with that example real quick, and we'll just say I would then ask you, when you said you get that first craving around 2 o'clock, right? Or is it 2 or 3 o'clock?
Yeah, we'll say 3.
3 o'clock. So, when 3 o'clock comes around, how do you know? Like, what tells you that you're craving that? Do you just, you get the sensation, or like what happens?
I would assume it's like a probably like a salivation and a
Mm,
sensation, and then they probably start to
yeah.
think about sweets, and they start to look around for maybe something that is sugary or like a piece of gum or something like that. That'd be probably where I would think.
So I'd say, like, can you prevent yourself from grabbing for something? Like, how long can you prevent yourself from grabbing for something? Let's say, like, can you wait till like 4 o'clock until you do that? Like, would you be able to wait an hour if you were to notice it?
I think I think if it were me particularly, yeah, I mean, I would be able to kind of push it aside, distract myself, or eat something and get so full that I don't want to eat sweets. Or like for me, my sweet tooth comes in like later at night, so it's really easy for me to just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go brush my teeth because I'm just gonna go to bed after that. I don't want to have to brush my teeth again." So
Right.
just kind of like put myself to bed rather than get like a midnight snack or something like that.
Yeah. Like,
But I
look, the
do.
key the key with it is to just understand that you're even feeling that way. So many people don't, like we talked about earlier, is we don't pay attention to those to the feedback our body's giving us. When we're getting that feedback, it's telling us something. So pay attention to it. There's no right answer for any one person in the scenario. I think at the end of the day, it's like you've got to even know that you're craving it, and that it's what you shouldn't be doing, before you prevent yourself from doing it, or try to hold off from doing it for a while, or make a better decision or a better choice. You still have to first be aware that it's even going on. So for that person, I would say, if I'm going to come up with a strategy, whenever you feel a craving, grab a piece of pen and paper and write down, I'm getting a craving or something right now. Like, it'll bring it right to the top of your mind, and then you're going to be thinking about it. And if you think about it enough, you're either going to cave into it, or you're going to be able to hold off. So,
Uh,
um,
yeah, I appreciate that answer. That's all I was looking for. That's great. Um,
very
yeah, no,
roundabout way to get there, but
yeah, no, and I wish we could. Wish we had more time to keep going into this stuff, but I would consider this like an interview. And Mike, we'd love to have you on the podcast, and definitely. And yeah, I mean, this has been great. And for those of you who are still listening, how do I go about finding this ebook?
so to get the ebook, you could just go to our website, which is www.goldenhomefitness.com/ebook. No hyphen, just EBOOK, and then you can just download it right there.
Great. Awesome. Check out Mike Urso's guide working out at home ebook. Definitely worth the information. It's like 30 pages, takes you about 20-30 minutes to read. Definitely worth a read. And I wanted to dive into some more stuff about mushrooms and different micro and macronutrients, but we're going to talk about that next week. And I always like to kind of end with some type of closing statement. So, Menchie, do you have one? We'll let Mike kind of get the feel for it.
Ask yourself why you aren't getting to where you want to be. Look inside yourself. What is stopping you? Start asking yourself those questions. What are the roadblocks that are stopping you? Really have that mindset to go change who you want to be, what you want to be, and where you want to be, because that's going to change everything around you and change other people too.
I love it. Love it.
Wow.
I'd like to say nothing that in depth because I guess I should have gone first because now it's hard to follow up from that. But um, I think one motivating factor can be summed up with this quote. And, 3 months from now, imagine yourself and you're going to want to thank yourself for starting today. So don't put it off anymore. Get going. Get started.
Nice.
All right, Urso. You ready?
You want me to give it a shot? Yeah. So
don't trip and fall.
oh man, here we go. So when you're stuck in a mental rut, right? Which we all get stuck in a mental rut at times. My suggestion would be to do something that's physically hard, right? And you've got to do that because it's something that tells you that, and it tells your brain that you're in control. You've got to take control of that situation. Cold shower, great way to do that. Drop down, do a bunch of push-ups, some squats, do something physically challenging in that moment when you're stuck in that mental rut. And what you're going to end up doing is reconditioning yourself so that you can snap out of those moments almost immediately when they do come up in the future. Recondition yourself.
I love it. Great quote. And if we weren't over an hour now, I could probably keep talking off what you just said for like another 15 minutes, because that is some really good advice. And I'm so happy to be able to be chatting with two brilliant people, and just look at me as the what do they call that person who in the debate, the facilitator or whatever, moderator. I'm just simply going to be the moderator, the fly on the wall, learning from you two guys, and this has been wonderful. Mike Urso, everybody, check out his ebook. We're going to be having him on the podcast from here on out, and next week I want to talk more into the nutrition side of things. I know we talked a little bit about it with precision nutrition, but we're going to talk more next week about macronutrients and micronutrients and what you're getting, what you're missing, and what you might be getting too much of. All right. That will conclude the Think Fitness Life podcast. Find us, subscribe to us. Stay tuned next week.